It's the Personal Development Podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Thanksgiving week, unless you are a turkey. Turkey, West, if you're a turkey, this is the week that you just, oh man, you just do not look forward to week.
Yeah.
Depends on your perspective, right? How you feel.
That's right. It could be the greatest or the worst, whichever one.
Oh man, we definitely hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. Take the time to reflect on those things that you're thankful for.
Be thankful that you're not a turkey.
Yeah, right. That's The other thing is that 150,000 people die globally every day around the world. So you're not that 150,000. So you have something to be thankful for.
Absolutely, that's a blessing.
Absolutely. All right. So today we're going to talk about how to turn your website into a profit-generating pipeline. And we have just the guest to help us to lead this conversation. So we're just going to jump right in it. So our guest is the founder of Uplift 360, helping founders turn websites and weekly content into reliable pipeline with his search everywhere optimization playbook. And he is coming to us from the future. He's actually coming to us from Australia, and in Australia it's already the next day. That's why we say he's coming. All right, it's already Tuesday. If you're watching us live, it's already the next day. So please join us and welcome into the show, Wes Towers.
Thanks, guys. Privileged to be with you. We don't get Thanksgiving over here, but we're obviously really influenced by the States and watch a lot of the TV and so on from there. So we're fully aware of what it is, but we miss out. We don't have turkey at this time of year, so I'm missing out on all of that fun stuff. So a privilege to be with you guys today.
Turkey's living a good life over there in Australia. He's like, I'm good.
That's right.
Yeah, they're safe. They're completely safe, 100%.
There you go. So again, welcome to the show. I am curious though, what was it that motivated you to enter the website design space?
Well, I got into it by accident, really, to a large degree. Back in the day, if we rewind right back to the start in high school, websites weren't really a thing. So talking to the careers counselor at high school about my interests and so on, he suggested I look at graphic design multimedia, which I did. So I went to uni, did graphic design multimedia there, got my first job in a Sydney marketing company. And this is how far marketing has changed. They'd never designed a website before, but I'd been there a few months, award-winning marketing company in Sydney. So crazy to think. They only had one computer connected to the internet, dial-up modem. We all shared one email address. We'd have to walk over to that one computer and share the email. Things have changed massively, but being there a few months, and they won a project to design a website, and they said to already sold the proposal. So I became their web guy, did that project, and I found I really loved it. I loved the technical and the creative mixed in together. So it's just really how I'm wired. So that's the path I've taken, and started my own company over 20 years ago now, and that's what I'm doing. So kicking along on the web design, digital marketing, search everywhere optimization, we're calling it. It's a crazy and exciting time to be alive right now in the digital space and the world in general, really, with AI and what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to put your pin on that AI thing. We're going to talk about that a little later. I've got a question for you on that. But you initially started out working for a marketing agency, right?
Yeah,
Before you launched out on your own.
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
Yeah. From marketing company to my own business, it was
working for an agency to ultimately working for yourself.
Yeah. Well, it was working for the agency. I just knew my skill set, so I only knew how to build a website and design things and make them look polished and so on. But there was a whole team around me to do the business side of things, and I had no idea. I'd been to a couple of client meetings, but I only sat there in support, didn't say a word. So I had no understanding of how to run a business, how to do a proposal, how to do bookkeeping, all this extra stuff that it takes to run a business. All I had was the seduction of knowing how much the marketing company charged me out for on an hourly rate comparative to what I was being paid, and thought, man, that's a massive gap. If I were to go out and do my own business, there's a lot more income for me. But I didn't sort of realize the effort and workload that it takes to run a business. So I started naively, but somehow survived around the edges in terms of business. Like first few meetings, I was sweating, like didn't know what to say, just presented terribly. But you soon figure it out because you have to.
Wes, it's interesting that you say that. In the past, there's been times when you'll have a consultant that provides a technical service, and let's say your rate, we'll just use this for an example, is the rate is $150 an hour that the company is getting. I should get 140 of it because I'm doing all the work. Right now, they don't think about what you had to do to pursue that customer. They don't think about the proposal. They don't think about the insurances. They don't think about anything else except the work. And for the most part, the work is the deal is done by the time you get to doing the actual work. Right. So, but you don't understand that until you start your own and you're like you said, I got to go in here. I got to find this customer. I got to do the presentation. I got to, do the billing. There's so many other, areas that have to get a part of that on the work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I was completely naive, and I think most people are. You can only really, I found quite quickly, you could only really work at billable hours, if that's the way you measure things, half the week. Half the week was taken up by everything else. And as you say, the insurance and all the extra stuff and the costs, and eventually getting an office and figuring out how to have team members, staff. So I messed up so many things along the journey. The first employee I got on board, I just had no idea how to lead somebody.
Right.
So I messed that up, but you got through, and it's been over 20 years now. So I learned some things.
So how long would you say it was from the time you launched out on your own to the point where you felt like you knew what you were doing and the business was meeting your expectations?
Well, the first year, I think it was around a year, that I did it just moonlighting, so just in the evenings, and then dropped back to only working for other people a couple of days a week, and then so it was a transition time over maybe 2 years, less than 2 years, I think it was. So dipped my toes in the water and figured some things out. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't feel as though I've still arrived, but I've been running over 20 years now. It still feels like I'm learning. There's too many things to learn. So the destination is just always feels a little further ahead. So that keeps me motivated and excited and challenged. Challenges are good in life. If you can overcome the challenges, there's new horizons, new exciting journeys to take.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And so if you could time travel back to when you're a new business owner, but you could time travel with the knowledge you have now, what advice would you give to that version of yourself?
Well, I think the best thing that I did was start getting along to networking groups. And so certainly some of them kind of forced you to stand up and speak to the crowd of however many people were in the room. So to present on your business, I think that was really helpful for me because I was a little bit shy and insecure as a young man starting business. So it just helped me distill down my thoughts and my business in practical terms so I can communicate it. I wish I had joined those groups earlier. I didn't even know they existed. It was just that I bumped into a photographer and he mentioned it. He invited me along to visit. And I thought, well, this is the way to go. To interact with a higher caliber of business people, they sort of rub off on you. You kind of become the people in which the quality networking groups I was attending and learning how to craft a pitch, how to present, all these things. I would certainly have encouraged myself to do that earlier.
Can you talk a little more about that? And the reason I'm asking was I heard you in other appearances, and what you said about kind of how you really are able to simplify your message. Can you talk more about that? I just thought that was profound.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I was a part of a group where we had about 30 members, I think it was, and each week it was a weekly breakfast meeting and on their business. So, and because there was 30 in a row, that's a lot of information to absorb. So you quickly realize, hey, you've got to be really clear and precise and compelling in 1 minute. So you've got to communicate something so effective that people remember it, because it's 30 minutes of other people talking. You know, how are you going to stand out? Was that you got to, if you stuffed it up, if you made a mess 1 week, you could come the next week and do a better job. So it gave you the opportunity to tinker with things and try some new things. But what I quickly learned was being really clear and precise on exactly what type of work you do or want to do. So exactly what kind of customer, your ideal client, to target those types by accident, and I soon realized. So you could be really specific in what you were looking for. And then other things kind of people sort of relate and realize, hey, if he does this thing, then he probably does those other things as well. So yeah, it was a really great learning. They gave some training on how to present and so on, but it was pretty rudimentary. The real benefit was just trying it each week and trying to do new things and communicating more effectively, so people would engage with
groups like that, and you're seeing other people present. You can pick up and say, "Man, that's really great how that person did it," and then you can be like, "Man, I surely don't want to sound like that guy." I went to an event one time. It was probably like 20 people, business owners in the room, and then what we're going to do is everyone in here, I want you to talk about your business, talk about yourself, and say one thing about you that you'd want everyone to know about you. Man, Wes, it felt like 3 hours later. Like by the time it got around the room, for me, it was like, look, I'm Ted. I think I was worn out, because some people, like you said, about being, concise, getting to the point, really it's most interesting to you.
Right.
So you start talking about all of this, talking about how I can tell you about Eric is in here. And let me tell you about how I met Eric. And I was like, no one cares about how you met Eric. Like that wasn't even what you were supposed to be talking about. And so, so just getting to the point, being clear, being precise, because, people, their attention span for listening to, what you're sharing is probably so big.
Yeah. And you raise an interesting point, Ted. When you're in those groups and everyone knows they're going to talk for a minute or whatever it is, what they're concentrating on mostly is their 1 minute. So whilst everyone else is talking, they're thinking about what they're going to say. So they're only really half listening to to what you're saying until such time as they've done theirs, and then they can relax and listen a little better. So you've really got to nail it. You've got to be so compelling and precise and engaging in some way. So storytelling and so on can be really helpful for that. And if it's a little bit funny and curious, people might listen. But I was the same as you, man. If I was, if my time was coming, because you're working around the circle and you go, I haven't heard a thing the previous people had said. So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole idea of the elevator pitch. And over the years, we've done scenarios of, hey, okay, you're in the elevator and Oprah Winfrey or Bill Gates or somebody who can literally change your life by investing in your business. You're on the 8th floor, you're going from 8 to number 1. You got to present. These people have very short attention spans because they're just, okay, what's the bottom line here? So I think those networking groups that do give you good practice on that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
All good. It kind of translates to everything in marketing, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Our attention spans are so short with social media, and we've got an attention span of a TikTok really in every aspect of marketing.
Yeah,
that is true. So let's talk about Uplift 360. You're the founder. So tell us about who's your ideal client and how specific.
So yeah, our niche, we do websites, we do search everywhere optimizations. So we're a digital agency, but that wasn't always the way. We found that the majority of our best clients kind of all looked the same, sounded the same, they were in the same industries. So the niche found us as opposed to the other way around. And sometimes people assume I got into the construction niche for websites because I had some sort of construction background. It's not the case. I can't do any of it. So it's a funny thing. But what I did find and discover was I related really well to these types of people, these business leaders, the founders. I think it's because they're practical, pragmatically connect with me. I don't like to use lots of lingo and jargon and techie stuff. I try and avoid all of that as best I can and just have a conversation with these people. So I think that's why they kind of liked working with me. And so I realized, hey, there's something happening here, providing great value to these customers. So I pursued it more heavily.
But how did you know that? Okay, was it that the construction people were referring you more other construction people, or is it just easier to talk to them? What was it that confirmed?
So we had a mix of all sorts of customers, but they were always the happiest and seemed to be producing the best outcomes. It's kind of like there's this saying, happy wife, happy life. It's kind of like that, happy client or customer, happy business. So something was engaging with them for whatever reason world early. And as you say, so you get known in the space and the referrals start flowing through. And once you start to drill down into a niche, you get to understand the nuance and specifics of that industry. And so you can adapt what you've learned for one client into the next client. You don't copy exactly what they're likely to produce an outcome, get some quick wins for them, which, whenever you get a new client on board, it's ideal if you can get some success pretty quickly because they're still in that phase of figuring out, hey, does this company actually deliver on what they promise?
Yeah. So there's a lot of website providers, right? There's a lot to choose from. So what is it about Uplift 360 that's different from the others that are out there?
Yeah, so we've leaned heavily, and I know you said we'll touch on AI, in doing search engine optimization for so long and getting great success out of that. But when things started to shift into AI, we were really progressive in that to figure out ways in which we can help our clients show up in large language models. So show up in ChatGPT to be recommended when people have a conversation with their ChatGPT or other large language models. So the business recognized in those tools. So because we're getting great success in that for often local businesses and national businesses. We've got clients everywhere. We've found ways to adapt the learnings that we had from the old school search engine optimization and it adjusted it so it's changing all the time, which is super exciting and terrifying at the same time. It's like a roller coaster journey, really. What's going on in the world? We can only adapt and adjust as things come to hand.
Yeah, so I mean, we might as well get to this now. Just the idea of AI. I was just curious as far as how the.
Yeah, well, so it was a blessing now that I reflect upon it. But about 3 or 4 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, I would say it must have been now 3 years. I don't know, but a few years ago, I got a business valuation done, and whilst all the metrics that you typically look for to value a business, everything was looking great. So you'd expect a pretty good valuation, but it came in really low, and the valuer identified that AI was a massive risk to my entire industry, and not just my business, my rise of AI. So I thought, man, that was a real kick in the teeth, so to speak, and deflating. Building something for so long and then be told it's worth less than the assets it held. I don't know how that's even possible. That's what it came in as. So it was a wake-up call, and I realized, hey, I've got to figure out this AI thing because of what I might change. And so just doubled down on the technology and found ways to adapt and use it in the business to get work done fast. And now the same outcome is achieved, just finding new standard operating procedures effectively. So the way in which we build a website or we optimize all these things, we've just enhanced and improved that. And so that's the tech piece, but also I took the time to reflect and think, what's important to me as a business person? What do I truly value? And it was the relationships and the human side. So whilst the two things feel like the complete opposites, the humanity, but then the AI tech, they kind of work hand in hand because the AI, the technology can free up so much time that you can reinvest in building relationships with your customers and potential customers, and to get out there again, to meet people, go to networking things, spend more time with clients, maybe to listen at a deeper level, and come up with a strategy that will effectively improve their businesses.
So just listening to you, it's sounding like the threat, concern around AI, you've taken that and said, hey, let's leverage those things that AI can do for me to free me up to do the things that AI can't necessarily do. AI can't go have a cup of coffee with a client or necessarily ask the client about how the kids are doing, those types of things. I mean, I think, right, yeah, not yet. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How's little Johnny doing? How did you
Yeah, I know. The phones are always, I don't know, maybe it's conspiracy theory, but I feel as though my phone is always listening to me, and even when it's not meant to be. But that's another story. But you're right. So, yeah, we might get banned if we go too deeply into that. So, so the things that I valued, it's freed me up, and we've had our most profitable financial year ever, and that's continued on. So we report, I think you guys report at the regular year, so December, but we report end of June for financial years, remained on that trajectory into this financial year too. So,
Congratulations.
So leveraging AI. Yeah, so it's been great. It's been great for us. I don't know what's on the horizon because things are always going to adapt. If I don't lift my game and continue to provide value to the clients, they're swept away and taken over by AI and the robots and all that kind of fun stuff. So you just have to lift. Right. I think every business is true. You just have to lift your game. You have to find ways to produce the outcomes that you've produced, but at a higher level.
Absolutely.
Yep, for sure. So let's talk more about the website. So what are some common website mistakes that you see from various businesses that may keep them from generating, that pipeline and generate more business?
Yeah, well, there's the two aspects. There's two sides of the website strategy that we typically use for our clients. So there's your main sales pages. So they need to be clear, concise, compelling, engaging, kind of like that same elevator pitch that we spoke about earlier. It's because people are only half listening. They're just going to scan through and quickly grasp what it is you do, whether they feel as though you're a good fit and make an inquiry or buy something, whatever the case may be. So they're your main sales pages, but then behind the scenes, there's another need. So people are looking for information and resources, and they might be researching your industry or they're looking for a solution to their problem. So that's where you use blog or insights or news, whatever you want to call it, case studies. But that's where not everyone's going to read. Only the relevant information will surface to the right people at the right time when they're searching on Google or if they're using large language models. But all these tools are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to surface the very best information for someone's particular need at that time. So if you've got that fuel behind the scenes in your website, you'll attract engaging and interesting to them right then. And then hopefully end up on your sales page, make the inquiry, get the booking. So that's kind of how it works from the pipeline perspective. You just got to funnel in as much traffic, targeted traffic to your website as you possibly can, and look to convert that into an inquiry. For us, for construction businesses, so they can find out the scope of works.
And talk more about what you do as it relates to search engine optimization. So it increases the chances that the business is coming up on page one of the maps.
Yeah, on the local. Yeah, so a lot of the businesses on the maps, that's really relevant for local businesses, and typically for a construction or trade-based business, that would be true. You can only service your region, so you really want to drill down and focus on that location, and so that's why the Google business profile is really important. And some of our clients are small, so they don't need an office, so therefore they haven't got an address construction company, but they haven't at a scale that they need an office. That's challenging because you can't really show up on a map if you haven't got a pin on an address. There's so much value in showing up in that local search. The other aspect of it too, and I think what's accelerating that lack of trust is the way in which people are mass producing content at scale. So we know that AI tools are producing that content, so therefore we don't necessarily trust it to represent a company. Or, I mean, the videos that are being produced now, they just look so near perfect. You can see, and it's kind of intriguing. You see videos of Michael Jackson or somebody else, and it's not real, but it's what we're seeing. We can't believe our eyes anymore. But once we're seeing a third-party endorsement on a Google business profile reviews, for example, that's super powerful. So there's some really key things to focus in on. Whilst you can't. I mean, people try to cheat, so I would never advise anyone to do that, because if you get found out, you get blacklisted. It's a world of pain. But what you want to do is
you don't want to do that.
Yeah, but what you want to do is encourage your customers to leave a Google review. Great service, and people want to leave a positive review. It's human nature that people will feel more compelled to leave a review if you've done a horrible job. It's just those negative feelings. It's just what positive service. They're unlikely to leave a review, but if you've done an exceptional service, they are. But with a little prompting, people will generally spend the time to write that review for you. So just prompting people at the right time to get that stuff done. It helps. Anything that's Google Love as well. So it's a Google profile. It's Google.
Hey, so you talk about trust. From what I'm seeing, people are distrustful if they see a business that's got 100 5-star reviews. They think, okay, he's either got all his friends and family, or they're using some type of automated thing. So, like, what I've seen, you can speak to this, is like they say the range is between 4.2 and 4.7 when people, really trust what the reviews are saying.
Yeah, it is an interesting. I've got 5-star review, and I mean, I'm not going to artificially create less than 5, but you're right. So it's more believable if it's not quite 5. I was at a presentation a year or two ago by a psychologist type guy who's turned marketer, and so he was giving all the data on that, and it is compelling. People often really worry about one negative review. They might have 100 positive, and someone comes in and writes a negative review, and it's not warranted for whatever reason. I mean, I had someone call up really worried that they had a negative review. It wasn't even from a customer. It was someone who had requested a quote, and they didn't like the quote. They didn't like the price. I mean, leaving a negative review because that's not in your budget. It's call that one negative review, and I explained to them, you've got so many positive. People generally realise there's just some bad eggs out there that leave silly reviews that aren't warranted, and it's not going to hurt you. Just respond in a friendly manner. The human nature is to want to jump in and say why they're wrong. But you've got to avoid that just at a higher level and just say something the upper ground.
Yeah, I've seen some things like that on social media, and someone's leaving a bad review, and then that business comes in and says, "Hey, I'm sorry you didn't have a good experience. Maybe DM me your information. I'll follow up," or something to show that that they're I guess stepping up to having a discussion with you about whatever it is, and seeing if there's something that they can do to make it right. And then when you see that as a viewer, you're kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just humanizes everything as well, because I mean, with this artificial age we're living in, artificial intelligence, there's this perfected job, but I think we're craving human reality. So I think real beats perfect every time. So even when you do, even if you did do something that wasn't quite right, you delivered late on your promise and you got a negative review, to own it in that scenario, and people realize, oh, this is just people who made an occasional mistake. They've owned their mistake, they've moved on, they've found a way to move forward and minimize those, rehumanize in that way.
Yeah, I like that. Real beats perfect every time. All right. That's good. I think that's 100% true. All right, so we're about to go into our final segment called Write This Down. Wes, this is Ted's favorite part of the show. So this is where we each that the people need to write down so they can level up. So Wes, you are our guest of honor. What do people need to write down from today's episode?
I would say I'll try to give you another tweakable. Is there what call it? Something along those lines. Let's go with momentum beats perfection. So it's kind of similar to the other one. So yeah, just getting started, like starting in business and not knowing how to run a business, but that didn't kill the business, and it just, you've got to fill in the gaps as you go. But if I'd never started, I would never have started, and I would never have learned how to do the stuff that I eventually figured out how to do. So I think just get it.
Good. No, I think that's very memorable. Momentum beats perfection. Write that down. All right, Ted.
Yeah, that's tough to follow. I think, what kind of stood out to me the most in this conversation is, that the value of networking. Focus on, being able to connect, versus close, right? So, so if you have that mindset that you're thinking connect over close, then the closing will come, but you must connect first, right? So when you come in with a long, drawn out kind of a pitch, and you're talking about the attention span of others, right? That could be the thing to turn someone off. But if you focus on connecting, right, then you'll get that follow-up discussion where you'll be able to work on a close. So I say, you need to have a connecting over closing mindset. And that's terrible.
Connecting over closing.
Where you make it.
That's a terrible quote.
Twiggable.
Because you can't say tweetable anymore, right? Because Twitter's changed their name to X.
That's right. So you can call it twiggable.
Twigable, right.
I don't like twiggable. It was good. It's twiggable.
There you go. Write that down. So my contribution to this is where you're talking about how important it is to be clear and precise. And one of the things I always say that is that clarity is the starting point of success. And one of the things, I think, if you go to a networking event, you tell somebody, what you do, and they're like, "Oh, tell me more." I think that's a sign that you're communicating effectively. Because otherwise, if you're not clear and precise, you just sound like everybody else, and you don't stand out. And you ultimately don't get more business, don't accomplish your objectives. So I just think it's critical to be clear and precise, like you were saying. And I do believe those networking events are very helpful to get you to accomplish that. So good stuff. Yeah, this has been a fantastic episode, Wes. So how can people get more information? Yeah, how can people get more information? Because I know they want to sign up with you so you can build their website and take them to the next level.
So uplift360.com.au is the website. You can book a strategy call with me straight there, but also connect on socials if you want to.
There you go. Uplift360. Make sure you reach out to Wes.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So thank you for sharing that. And for those of you watching and listening, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show. Share the show.
There you go. Don't keep this great information a secret. Don't forget also that you can also access the 30-Minute Hour podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of those podcasting platforms. And make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button. That way you never miss a future episode. Thank you again to Wes Towers, who shared all the things that he shared. You can go to uplift360.com to get more information on him. That's our time for this week. And always remember, never to allow perfect to become the enemy of progress. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.